Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of What to Stream, our 10th episode, which is crazy. These episodes are just flying by.
Yes, they are.
I know, right? Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
So what's that? 10 times we've each talked about 3 movies. Math.
That's a lot of movies and TV shows.
60 plus things we've talked about. That's wild.
Doesn't feel like it.
It doesn't at all. It's crazy.
And we got tons today.
Yes, exactly. For those who don't know, my name is Morgan. I am a member of the HCA and the founder of Cinemacy, which is a website dedicated to independent film. And Lupe?
And I'm Lupe Rodriguez Haas. I run Cinemovie.tv, and like Morgan, also a Hollywood Critics member. And we're here to talk about movies and TV shows, TV series that are new and what maybe you missed that we just caught up on.
Exactly. So I would love to start with a film that is coming out in theaters and on demand on Friday. I watched this movie last night, and it's very slow. It's very intentional, and it's very Swedish. And this is a documentary called About Endlessness. This film is about 70 minutes long. So I went into it knowing that it was going to be like a shorter, quicker, I thought maybe faster paced movie. But it's not. This is from the famed Swedish director, Roy Andersson. And he likes getting deep. If you are familiar with some of his past work, they're very philosophically charged. Such films like A Pigeon Sat on a Branch, reflecting on existence. And he also did this film called A Swedish Love Story. And this film About Endlessness is back with another kind of introspective look at the mystery of life. What is really interesting about this film in particular, About Endlessness, is the structure of how this film was put together. So the entire film is made up of a collection of vignettes that are all basically inconsequential moments in people's lives. So one scene, for example, is a man tying his daughter's shoe in the rain. That's it. There's another scene where a girl is on a date with a guy, and he pours her a glass of champagne and he watches her drink it. That's it. They sit and stare at each other. There's, I don't think, any dialogue in this scene. It's just kind of ambient sound. Interesting. One thing that you'll probably notice from these pictures is just how beautiful and cinematic this looks, which is the film's biggest strength. Every image looks like it's pulled from a Renaissance painting. And I think that's kind of the intention behind this movie too. The more I was reading about it and just kind of dissecting it after watching it, the purpose of this film was to take these inconsequential moments, these really standard interactions that we have with people in day-to-day lives, and make them really something special and historic. So these scenes of, a man with his wife at home kind of could be an everyday average scene, average people, but just the look of this looks so strong and bold and special when there really isn't any reason to be special necessarily. But that's kind of the intention behind the entire movie. The director, Roy Andersson, is saying that life is special. He had this actually really great quote that I would love to read. It's 2 sentences. It says, "The main theme of my work is the vulnerability of human beings. And I think it's a hopeful act to create something showing vulnerability. Because if you're aware of vulnerability of existence, you can become respectful and careful of what you have." So I thought that was really cool, just saying that knowing that life is precious makes you appreciate the mundaneness that life also brings. So it's a very introspective film. It's kind of out there, but it's really fascinating. It's very slow, very slow. So if you're wanting something that's a little more fast-paced, this isn't for you. But if you need to kind of just sit down and reflect as you come out of this COVID cocoon and we kind of re-enter society, and you want to just reassess what is important to you, I think this is a really great movie to kind of plant some seeds. And it's being released through Magnolia, and it is being released in theaters and video on demand this Friday.
Well, that sounds interesting. But you preface it with the fact that it's slow. But
Yeah,
when you think about European films, you always have to preface things with saying like, okay, it's European, because they have such a different way of doing things, right?
exactly. Yeah, this is very much an art house, kind of experimental film, but luckily it is 70 minutes, because I think any longer would have just been a little bit monotonous and kind of too much of the same thing. But yeah, no, it's a perfect amount of time, just great execution. So yeah, it's worth checking out for sure.
Well, I'll have the opposite of that I'm talking about. If that kind of film is not for you, maybe this next action flick is. It's for Amazon. It's coming out Amazon Prime Video this weekend. It's Michael B. Jordan's first film with Amazon. He's got a first look deal. I'm sorry, you hear the sirens going. Not many sirens in this video, but there's definitely a lot of action. And it's from his Outlier Society, is his production company. And of course, it's called Without Remorse. I'm sure we've heard of it. It's an adaptation of Tom Clancy's. I don't know if it's a novel or maybe an adaptation of one of his characters. Michael Jordan stars B. Jordan. Let me make that clear. We're not talking about the sports figure, hence the B. So he is playing a character whose name is John Clark in the Tom Clancy movies, the Jack Ryan in particular, and in the novels, but they changed his name for some reason. Here, his name is John Kelly. So I'm not sure why they changed the name, but that's who he's playing. And essentially, it's an origin story of this person who's a senior chief Navy SEALs officer. And this character, as I mentioned, is John Clark. We've seen him portrayed in the Jack Ryan movies, first by William Dafoe in Clear and Present Danger, and then when Ben Affleck took over the Ryan series, just for that one film, Liv Schreiber plays him in The Sum of All Fears. And essentially, this John Clark is the guy that does all the dirty work. So he's CIA in those movies, but like I mentioned, this is an Origins film, and it's pretty much a revenge thriller, I would say. Once someone kills Michael B. Jordan's pregnant wife, I might add, which is even harsher. He's on the revenge trail to find who the perpetrators are, and it has something to do with a recent mission that they were on to rescue somebody from their squad. And somehow the Russians are tied into it. And so they come back and kill all the soldiers that went on the mission. But obviously he was left alive. And so now it becomes this sort of Death Wish type of movie. So there's a lot of action. Guy Pearce also stars in it. Jamie Bell. He plays this shady, shadowy CIA agent. And we also have Jodie Turner-Smith, who plays another Navy SEAL. And what I really liked about the film is that they treat her as his equal. She actually outranks him. She's sort of his boss. And I really like what they did with her. They treated her, like I said, as an equal. She's just as tough as Michael B. Jordan's character. And I'm so glad that they didn't relegate her to a love interest status. Because you know how in most movies, they always relegate the woman and the man, to potential love interests. So they didn't do that. So I love the fact that they really put her on equal ground with everyone in the movie. And so, unfortunately, Rotten Tomatoes, so far it's negative comments. I don't know where it's coming from. It's a typical Clancy movie in the essence that it has intrigue, it's got double dealings, it's got conspiracy, it's got a lot of action. Not Jason Bourne like mano-a-mano combat. There's a lot of gunplay in this movie, and it's based on military military combat style. So it's very realistic. It's not Jason Bourne style, and it does remind you of the old 90s type movies like the Jack Ryan series and all these other series. I forgot my glasses here. Can you see me? I'm in the dark here. So, I mean, I enjoyed it. It's playing on Amazon Prime, so it's not like you're going out in the theater. I mean, I think watching things from home, I think you lower your expectations a lot. But no doubt Michael B. Jordan is an action star. This makes him a legit action star. We saw him in Black Panther. You know, he did his action stunts there. But I think here it really cements him as an action star. And they obviously set it up as a franchise because we are talking about Tom Clancy. So there's like a big library that they can choose from. Of course, you're going to update it. But yeah, they totally set it up at the end so that perhaps he's going to come back in another way. So, I mean, it makes sense, right?
Yeah.
Especially Michael B. Jordan said he was a fan of the Tom Clancy movies. So, you know, he took it up, and I think it's a good fit for him. So I think people will enjoy it, especially if you're a fan of him and you're a fan of action movies. I think it's really his character. You can really relate to him, and the action is solid. So I think it's an enjoyable watch at home. If you're going, I mean, maybe if you went to the movie theater, maybe it wouldn't be worth it. But, you know, if you're at home and you're in need of an action movie, just some popcorn flick, you know, Without Remorse is your ticket for that.
Nice. Yeah, I was trying to think of the last big action movie that's come out.
The Clancy one?
Tenet, or just in general? Like,
oh yeah, in general.
Just so their expectations are so high because there hasn't been a really good action movie that's come out in like the last year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, this one fits the bill. Yeah, I can't think of one either. I mean, I've seen a lot of action films on Netflix, and I'll be talking about another movie that's sort of it's a thriller. But I think your expectations are lower when you're at home, and especially if you're already a subscriber, it's like, I'll just watch this tonight. It doesn't feel like you're putting out extra. Like if you pay, you know, what is it, $13, $16 to go to the movies nowadays? You know, but even I think if you sign in a movie theater, I don't think it would be bad, a bad experience, because you're getting the action. If you're going for action, you expect a certain level of action, and this delivers on that front. Nice,
cool, glad to hear it.
Yeah.
So I have another film that is one that you may have missed. This is a documentary on the singer Billie Eilish, and the film is technically called Billie Eilish: The World's a Little Blurry. And this is a documentary that is released via Apple TV Plus and released through Neon, now streaming on Apple TV Plus, directed by RJ Cutler. I saw this film kind of late. It came out earlier this year, and I saw this last week and absolutely loved it. I'm a Billie Eilish fan. I think her voice is unmatched and incredible just for how delicate and young she is. She is insanely talented, but I didn't really know much about her as a person, just aside from, I don't know, Instagram, I guess. This documentary is so great. It's kind of long, so it covers a lot of aspects of her life, which is great, starting from her very first song, Ocean Eyes, which is really popular. I'm sure you've heard it. If you haven't, you're probably living under a rock or something, but it's on SoundCloud, Spotify, everywhere. Give that a listen first, and then watch the film. Ocean Eyes is incredible. And basically, the director, RJ Cutler, follows her for a couple years as she rises to fame. And what's really humbling about the whole thing is Billie's family, and I feel like she still does, but her family still live in East LA, like in the Highland Park area, which is crazy. Just the fact that she's this mega superstar, she still lives at home with her family in Highland Park. Wild. But the documentary is a very personal portrait of this artist who is finding just this fame hitting her all at once and not really expecting it or knowing what to do about it, but also shows the humanistic side of her and how she's so close with her family. She's devastatingly close with her brother, Phineas, who's also her producer. And the two of them together created their Grammy award-winning album, which last year won like 6 Grammys, including like Album of the Year and Best New Artist. And that is that's all profiled too in the documentary. It's kind of a road trip doc at the same time, because it also follows Billie as she goes on a world tour, which is also nice to watch. Being stuck here, you can visit Italy and Utah and just all these kind of random places where she goes, and just imagine yourself there at a live show, which, you know, soon, hopefully, we'll all be able to do that again. But yeah, I mean, this documentary, all that to say, is really enlightening. It's also sometimes uncomfortable because it does show the darker side of fame and Billie's struggle with mental illness and her struggle with Tourette's. Like, she has Tourette's syndrome, and which is something that I never knew. I don't think a lot of her fans really knew that either, but this goes to show that, like, yeah, she struggles on the daily without broadcasting it to a bunch of people all the time. And just the secret struggles that, like, we all have and carry with us is something to be mindful of, especially celebrities. I mean, they probably have more problems than us normal people. And it's an interesting watch for sure. And I have to say, yeah, if you're a fan of Billie Eilish and you haven't seen this documentary yet, I highly recommend it. There is an intermission in the film too, which is nice because it does run over 2 hours long. I actually did pause it at intermission and then caught the rest of it later, and it worked that way too. So you don't have to watch it in one full sitting if you don't want to. But again, that's Billie Eilish, The World's a Little Blurry, and that is on Apple TV+.
Yeah, I mean, I don't listen to her music, but I find her fascinating because of how she produced her first album with her brother at home in their bedroom. Yeah. I mean, she's got a fascinating, you know, story. So I've been wanting to check that out. Just like I said, because I think she's got a really great backstory, and she's not following in the footsteps of previous, you know, songwriters who go a certain routes, because it's almost like in movies, it's like a formula. You know, like they always have to follow this formula, and she seems like she's going to stay on her path, and she doesn't allow for those outside influences, which I love, because too many times people become corrupted by the outside. Totally.
She has a good support system too. You can tell, like, her mom and her dad are very protective, but also let her be who she is, but don't want her, to get hurt or fall into this system of corruption and just mind control. So it's a really, it feels nice watching this. It doesn't feel exploitive at all. You just actually kind of fall more in love with her after watching it, or at least I did. So I think you'll really like it. I'm excited to hear what you think about it.
Yeah, I had no idea she had Tourette's.
Yeah.
I had no idea. Wow.
You hit it well.
Because usually the media would always cover that, like, you know, like a scandal almost. So I'm surprised
exactly.
that.
Like some sort of headline or something. But no, she kept it under wraps for a while.
Oh, wow. Interesting. Okay. Well, it's on my list. I just haven't gotten to it. All right. So like I was mentioning to Morgan earlier, this weekend, I didn't feel like doing any work. So I basically binged on Netflix all weekend. So I saw a bunch of stuff that has already come out, but I had just discovered it through the Netflix interface. So first thing up is Synchronic with Jamie Dornan and Anthony Mackie. I had no clue this was out there. Two of my favorite characters, not my favorite, but actors that I like to see in projects. So Synchronic on Netflix. It's about these two. They play two New Orleans paramedics, and they've had to answer some calls for some really horrific deaths and accidents related to a drug called Synchronic. So it's not a detective story, but they're trying to figure out like what is going on. Whenever they answer a call, it's just like the weirdest thing that happens to these patients. Like sometimes they'll find patients with severed limbs, or one of them is burned to death, and nobody can really figure out like what's going on. And the police just blow it off like, oh, whatever, they're druggies, who cares? So these two guys, I mean, they don't start investigating, but they're trying to figure out like what is going on with this. And then Anthony Mackie takes it upon himself to investigate. So it starts out as a mystery, but then in the second half, it takes a totally different turn. And now Mackie is investigating this drug. He's going after the drug maker, who's this lone guy, and he finds out how it works. And then it turns into this sci-fi thing. And then there's time travel involved. So now I'm all confused. I don't know what the heck is going on. There's some predictable moments. You find out it's something about Anthony Mackie, and you're like, oh, okay, I know how this is going to end. And just the storyline is so far-fetched. It doesn't really deliver on the setup because it starts out as one thing and ends up as another. Actually think the second half is a lot more interesting. And they probably should have like started right away with that, or at least, indicate where they're going. But the fact that this comes up like halfway through the movie, it felt like two different movies. And I mean, the actors are enjoyable to watch. Who doesn't love Anthony Mackie? He's on... he's hot right now. I mean, he's got this movie on Netflix. He's also got Outside the Wire, which I liked. That's an action movie. I really like that one. That was entertaining. And then, of course, Falcon and the Winter Soldier. He's just blowing up everywhere. So if you're a fan of Anthony Mackie and Jamie Dornan, I would suggest checking this out. It is an interesting... Like I said, it's an interesting concept. It doesn't exactly pay off, but I check Rotten Tomatoes, and both sides, critics and audiences, it has like a 70% fresh. So I'm like, I'm shocked. Considering Without Remorse, because I actually happened to be checking Without Remorse and then just came across Synchronic's ratings, and I was like, oh, we're like total opposite, I like Without Remorse, and it has bad critics review, and it doesn't have an audience review. But Synchronic has a good review, a 70% for both critics and audience. So who knows? Some people liked it. I just didn't think it paid off because I watched it in two parts. I watched the first part, then I fell asleep, and then I watched it again because I thought, where is this going to go? And it just wasn't satisfying enough, because I was looking forward to it. I'm like, oh, I wonder where it's going to go. I wonder what is going on here, because it's the way they find these. Well, they're dead. Some of them are dead. These people in need of help. It's just so bizarre, and so the payoff is just not there. So, like I said, if you just need something to watch, it's there for you to enjoy.
Yeah, anytime you kind of add a sci-fi element out of nowhere, you really need to earn that, I think.
Yeah, I mean, you can do a setup within 10 minutes and then maybe indicate that you're going to go somewhere.
Yeah.
But then at first you're like, how is this? What is going on here? Like, you have no clue. You're like, the character, you're like, what the heck is going on here? But you kind of dismiss it like, oh, they're drug addicts. Who knows what they did,
Uh-huh. Okay, good to know, because I had been curious about that. The poster looked really cool because it had this weird little orb thing or something in the middle of it, I think, and they were floating or something like that, and it looked interesting. But
yeah, and the name of the title of the movie sounds really interesting. Like, oh, so yeah, that's a cool title. Let's see what this is about. So,
all right, well, good to know. I won't put that on the top of my list. Well, speaking of otherworldly, I have a film that I saw a long time ago, but I rewatched it again on Friday, and it was like I was watching it again for the first time. It was beautiful. And this was a film that I saw at the Cinespia drive-in screening, which if you haven't been to a Cinespia screening in general, highly, highly recommend it. But because of COVID, they've been doing drive-in screenings, which is still fun. Not as, obviously not as great as like being in the cemetery with friends and a picnic and a bottle of wine. It's all great. But I saw Alien on Friday, the original 1979 Ridley Scott Alien film. And it was so fun seeing it at a drive-in movie. I went with my brother. And this film is currently streaming, if you missed it at Cinespia. It is streaming on Hulu. And also, fun fact, apparently April 26th was Alien Day, which I didn't know, but yeah, so good timing. Maybe that was intentional on Cinespia's part. But yeah, basically that's organized and promoted by 20th Century Fox, who, put out the film back in the day. So I'm sure everyone knows, if you haven't seen Alien, you know of it. Alien is a sci-fi film directed by Ridley Scott, and it basically follows a crew of commercial space astronauts who mix up a distress call for a danger call, and they go to this planet and encounter an alien that makes its way into the body of one of the crew members, which they bring back aboard the ship. And then bad things happen because the alien loses its mind, goes crazy, starts killing all the crew members. This is also a really great movie to prove that more women should be in charge because Sigourney Weaver's character from the very beginning says, oh, that's a bad idea. Don't bring the alien onto the ship. But she gets overruled by the guys in charge and bad things happen. And she is the voice of reason the entire movie. She is such a badass. She is so cool. And her character alone makes this movie just what it is. I think it wouldn't be the same without Sigourney Weaver in it. Yeah, for it's culturally so important too. I think in the cinematic landscape of just obviously science fiction films, but just kind of films in general. I was reading that in 2002, Alien was technically deemed culturally, historically, and aesthetically significant by the Library of Congress. And
Wow.
yeah, and selected for preservation in the US National Film Registry. So this is historic. This is such an important movie. It's on so many, best of lists, not just sci-fi, but just in general. So I highly recommend it. It's a great watch. It's great to watch, at a drive-in. So I'm sure there will be more screenings of this soon with all these various drive-ins that are really, really worth checking out if you haven't done so already. Highly recommend it. But yeah, my fun pick is Alien this time and streaming on Hulu.
Yeah, I've watched that movie probably like 100 times.
Yeah, I'm sure. That's why I feel like I can't really recap it because you know what I'm talking about. So
Yeah.
you could do it better than me.
But there's a lot of people who haven't seen this film. So, I mean, they should really, this was 1976, I want to say, 77 or 78.
Yeah.
But it was 70s. It was ahead of its time as far as, like you were mentioning, Sigourney Weaver playing the rational one. And she is the one that says, no, it's against protocol. We can't do it for the exact reason that what happened on the ship.
Exactly.
See what happens when you don't listen to a woman? That's what I tell my husband.
Exactly.
I love this movie. I haven't checked it out. Where did you say it's streaming?
It's on Hulu.
Oh, it's on Hulu. Okay. Or buy the 4K version. My husband bought it. It sounds great.
Oh, nice. Actually, yeah. Do that instead.
Yeah, when he brought it home or when he received it and he showed it to me, I was like, wow, like it looks really, really good.
That's cool.
Especially the second one, Aliens on 4K. Oh my God.
I haven't seen that yet. I have to see Aliens.
That one is straight up action. Whereas the first one was like a horror movie. I mean, I love both of them, but the first one was just ahead of its time and for the 70s for what it was.
Right. Yeah.
You know? Yeah. Okay. So my next one, back to the present. So another choice on Netflix. I came across it in the suggested area for in the front on the homepage. It's called The Stand-In. Have you heard of The Stand-In with Drew Barrymore?
I have. I haven't heard much about it, but I know it exists.
Yeah, well, I didn't know it existed. So much to my surprise, what hooked me was the fact that Drew Barrymore plays two characters. So it's Drew Barrymore versus Drew Barrymore in The Stand-In. And the premise is hilarious. Drew Barrymore plays an actress named Candy. That's her stage name. And basically, she's a comedic actress and she has one shtick. And she's sick of it. People will only call her to do the same role over and over and over again. She has a meltdown on the set. She throws something and hurts another actress. So she's relegated. She's canceled. So she has to go through rehab because she's also doing drugs. And she has a stand-in named Paula. And Drew Barrymore also plays Paula, who you see here. And she's not an identical twin. They put a prosthetic nose and a prosthetic chin on her. So they did a really good job because it seems like two different people. And Drew Barrymore did a really, really good job. So what happens is she hires this stand-in because the stand-in basically begs her to keep working because if she keeps working, then she keeps working as her stand-in. And she's kind of like a bit of an airheadish kind of character and she's got a little mousy voice. And Candy is quite the opposite. She's domineering. And so she decides she's going to hire her stand-in to take her place at rehab. And so Paula actually volunteers for it because her goal is so that Candy keeps working, so she can keep working and work towards being an actress. So what ends up happening is Paula and she gets permission from Candy, goes out on an apology tour. And so it's hilarious. She goes out apologizing for her behavior, and everybody likes her because she's so sweet and she's so different. Oh my gosh, she's made such a comeback. And so eventually Paula loves the attention. She takes over the role of Candy. She goes on set. And at first, Candy's more than happy to let her go do her thing because she is tired of Hollywood. She just wants to go back to her old life. She used to be a carpenter, which sounds odd. And she meets this other fellow carpenter. So she just wants to live the life of a carpenter, normal person. But Paula, taking up her role as an actress, starts to go crazy. Not crazy, but starts to take over her home. It just gets really crazy. And it's almost like a soap opera. It's kind of hilarious. But I think it's well worth the watch. Just watching her play these two characters was hilarious. I really enjoyed it. I mean, it's very soap opera-y, and it wasn't predictable. I kept thinking it was going to go one way, and it didn't. It would go the opposite way. So I really like that about it because I usually like to predict like what's next. Because I thought, oh, this is ridiculous. This is we've seen this premise before where there's twins and they took over each of their lives, but it doesn't go that route. So I kind of respected that for that. And Drew Barrymore, really good performance. And the effects, flawless. They seem like they're in the same room. So I was really impressed with that. And so, if you need a little distraction, I think it's fun. And if you like Drew Barrymore, then, you'll really enjoy it. And it's funny because if you know Drew Barrymore's history, she had sort of a meltdown as a kid. As a young actress, because she started out so young. She comes from the Barrymore Hollywood legend family. They've all suffered with addiction. So I wonder if it's a little, not autobiographical, but I'm sure she picked the project because she can relate to this character, just having enough of Hollywood, because Hollywood, well, we all know Hollywood, but she just wants to go back to her normal life because they don't allow her to expand. They want her to play the same character over and over and over again. And her character is kind of like a Pippi Longstocking. I don't know if you know who Pippi Longstocking is.
Mm-hmm.
She was this like 70s character. She was kind of fun loving. She had these pigtails that curled up. She was funny.
Yeah.
So the Candy character is kind of the actress, the comedic actress is based on that. So it reminds you a lot about that. So
interesting.
I enjoyed it. I mean, like I said, a good distraction. I thought it was pretty funny, and the performance. I was just enthralled with Drew Barrymore playing two characters. It was like, in soap opera they usually play two characters.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. I also I went to Cinespia twice last weekend, Friday and Saturday. And Saturday I saw The Parent Trap with Lindsay Lohan playing two characters. So and I love that movie. I love Lindsay, and I love Drew too. So. Yeah, I should watch that. That sounds good.
Yeah, I mean, well, actually, I was gonna say we haven't seen her in anything good, but actually, she's on another Netflix show, which I forgot what she's The Undead. No, you know what I'm talking about, the
Santa Clarita Diet.
Santa Clarita Diet. I love her in Santa Clarita Diet. I love that show, and
Yeah.
I caught that one late too. I was late to the party on that one, and I just loved her. I thought it was like, oh my god, I've never seen Drew Barrymore like this before. Because she always plays these cutesy characters. Well, in her the latter part of Drew Barrymore's career, she plays kind of like these cutesy characters, and then I think in the Stand-In, it allowed her to play like the bad side.
Mm-hmm.
Like that we used to see this bad girl. Remember early in her career, she started playing these bad girl characters in movies. So here she got to play like a little bit of both.
Nice. So that must have been fun for her. Cathartic.
Yeah. So check it out if you got time.
Sweet. I will.
Well, what's up next for you?
That's it. I'm done.
Oh, that's right. Okay, well, I have my other one. Okay, I have two more really quick that I'm going to be talking about. First up, I got to tell you about the show, The Serpent. Have you watched The Serpent on Netflix?
No, not yet.
Oh, my God. You have to check out this show.
Okay.
I watched it in a day.
Wow. The whole thing?
The whole thing. I could not wait to see what the heck happened. It's based on a true story, a true crime drama on the serial killer named Charles Sobrage. And in the 70s, he killed over a dozen and stole from a dozen travelers in Asia. And he would target hipsters and bohemians. And they trusted this stranger. He was a gem dealer, and he always lured him to his pad. And it was an apartment complex in Asia. I forgot what city. And he lured him in, with drugs and parties. And then he would either keep them around, steal their passports, steal their traveler's checks. And he was just a nasty character. And he recruited this girl from Canada. And eventually she became his partner. And together they would lure couples, mostly couples, into their lair, I would call it. And they would drug him, make him feel like they would get sick and like, oh, we're going to take care of you. And in the meantime, they were robbing them blind. And if they didn't cooperate or something went wrong, they would throw their bodies on the outskirts of the city. And it being a foreign country and then being hipsters and bohemians, they were off, let's just say off the trail. So they weren't easily found because people knew that they were out exploring. So that's how he took advantage of them. And then here's the apartment building where he would bring him in. And it was mostly foreigners living. So it was quite the life. So people would be lured into this, not knowing what would happen. And eventually, and that was actually an ambassador it was a Dutch ambassador who got on the hot trail of this guy because he became so obsessed with finding this guy because the Dutch couple that he killed, he burned them alive. So he became so obsessed with finding the culprits. It consumed his life. And like I said, this is based on a true story. Tahir Rahim plays the serial killer Charles Sobrage. And he is just phenomenal in this. He won a Golden Globe. He was nominated for a Golden Globe for Best Performance in The Mauritanian with Jodie Foster. And this story is just so twisted, so remarkable. And he was a genius. And he was charming, but he was a narcissist. He escaped prison a couple times. I guess there was, in India, he robbed a bank and he was jailed for it, but somehow he escaped. He escaped like multiple times. So he's like the Mexican drug dealer. What's his name? El Chapo.
Yeah.
But what was interesting is, it was based on what he did, but they tried to make him relatable by the fact that he felt like he was an outcast. He was raised in France, but he was part Asian, part part Vietnamese, and part Asian from India. And he always felt like an outcast in France. So he always felt like he was what he was doing was justified because he was the outsider, and he always mostly stole from white tourists from like affluent countries like Europe, Australia, and America. So I didn't buy it. I still didn't feel sorry for the guy, but just the fact that it was a true story, it's just outlandish how much he got away with. And the fact that the reason he got away with it was because the embassies didn't do crap because they were too scared of, they didn't want to set off any alarms in the country. So they didn't want to piss off any of the officials there. They were trying to walk a fine line. So, it's a failure from the embassies as well.
Yeah, totally. It sounds like it.
Yeah, because relatives were looking for them, and they're like, oh, they're probably off doing their hippie thing, and they were into drugs. I want to say they're drug addicts, but they were into drugs and partying. So a lot of people dismissed them. So again, we see again how people are just dismissed because they're hipsters or they're into drugs, so they're probably off somewhere and alive and well.
Easy targets or something.
Yeah. And then my other one, there's a theme running here. I have The White Tiger, also takes place in India. And I'm going to go through that really quick. It stars Priyanka Chopra Jones. She actually produced this. And the main character is played by Adarsh Gurray. Actually, the screenplay was up for a nomination at the Oscars this year for Best Adapted Screenplay. And it's based on this kid here named Beltram. Beltram. And if you know anything about India, it pretty much has a caste system. You have the servants and the master. And his goal is to get out of his little village, which is full of poverty. And his way out is to become a driver for the rich. And he knows that he's going to be the servant. And he kind of accepts it. But he knows as a driver, he'll have a little more clout. So he's enjoying, being the servant until they betray him, and they're going to make him take the fall for Priyanka's character, who accidentally killed a young boy while driving. She was speeding while under the influence, but they wanted him to take the fall. So then he decides that he's determined to do what they do, which is cheat his way to the top. And it's a really interesting film. I mean, you really feel for this guy, and even when he takes the criminal turn, you're like, you know what, these people deserved it in a way. It's kind of sick. I mean, to think that way, but I think that's what the whole story is about. That it shines a light on this class system in India, and it's so compelling that this kid, his only way out is to become a driver, and then when that fails, the only way out is to cheat the rich and get to the top. So I think it says a lot, and it just really, you feel bad for. Here in America, we talk about how the middle class is disappearing. Well, in India, there's only two. Like, there's the rich and the poor. I mean, I can't say if it's accurate, this movie, but just, the impression I got was that, wow, it's really such a drastic thing to see, that people come to think of themselves as servants.
Yeah. Especially if you feel like you're born into that and there's nothing you can do about it. Like, that's kind of a terrible, I don't know, way to live, I guess.
Yeah.
If that's not what you want to do, you're like being told that's it.
But he rose to the top.
Yeah.
kind of a sick way, but that says a lot. So anyway, that's my Netflix binge. As you can tell, I watched a lot of stuff this weekend. I just let Netflix tell me what to watch, and I did. Damn it.
So would you say that you trust the Netflix algorithm then?
Oh yeah, Netflix algorithm. They got me read as better than anything else. Because Hulu and Amazon, you really have to go looking for stuff, just to see like, oh, what's on here. Mm-hmm. But like Netflix, the algorithm, they figure out what you like and they put that forward on your interface and they hook you right away. So all these other streaming platforms, they should really take note, because I mean, all weekend I watched Netflix. I didn't go to any other platform just because I didn't have to. You end one thing, you're like, oh, what's this? Let me check out what this is. And then they play a trailer.
Yes.
Without you pressing on it.
Yeah. Sucks you in.
It sucks you. Like the Serpent, I had heard it was a good series, but I didn't want to get into another series because what happens is I stay up late, then I wake up early. I'm obsessed with the show. I need to find out it's one of those shows where you have to find out how it ends.
Yeah. Well, that's the sign of a good show. If you want to wake up to finish watching it.
Well, it's like Narcos, like you stop yourself from going into the news and seeing like what happened.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Because you're so desperate, like, how does this end? How does this end? So,
yeah, exactly.
But it's an easy watch.
I'm watching a show right now that's like that I'm almost finished with, the end of season 3, Dark. And I'll talk about it on an upcoming episode when I finally finish the whole thing. But that's kind of the same thing. I've been just like, I need to finish this show. It's so good.
Is it the German series?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I watched the first season and I didn't catch up.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's a deep dive of a show. It's a lot.
The ending was like, okay, I guess we're going in a different direction now. Right?
Yes. And it goes way further than that too.
Oh.
There's many layers.
Okay. Well, can't wait to hear what you say about it.
Yeah, coming soon. Hopefully.
All right. Well, that's next week. So join us next week. We'll have more goodies for you and what to ignore.
Yes, very true.
All right. Well, have a good weekend and plenty out there to watch.
Yes. We'll see you next week.
All right. And tweet us here, right here is our handles. And let us know what you're watching or what you want us to watch or what's coming up. And we'll try to get an advanced screener and let you know.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, have a good one.
See ya. You too.
And then I have to go find my file. Here we go.